Welcome to another edition of Vigorously with me, Val Kleinhands, content creator, singer, and bassist, and one who really does all the things. Joe Gamel is in the building. I'm thrilled to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here, Val. I'm so glad that I checked my spam folder. Note to self. I was like,
You're
"Oh, what's this?" And I went and I checked out your show. I really like the topics that you cover on this show, like self-care. And I saw that you had that episode discussing like female fronted rock bands. I was like, oh, this is for
Mhm.
me.
Well, I mean, I've been so a little background. I worked in radio a while ago, and that was a huge blessing in the fact that I got to meet a lot of wonderful women in music. And I definitely still heard the stigma behind what was it like being in a rock band and blah blah blah. It's like it doesn't make a bit of difference. So I definitely wanted to touch on that. I'm like, because at the time, this was what, 2017, 2018. I was like, why am I still hearing this? Why am I still
Mm,
hearing that female musicians are getting asked questions like that? Because to me, I don't care. I mean, it's a bonding mechanism in a way, I guess, because I'm also a female. But is it essential for my listening choices? Absolutely not. It
right.
doesn't matter. If it
Right.
sounds good, I'll listen to it, period.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts on that? Or do you think there have been any improvements in how women are treated in music?
Yeah. Okay. So that's such a great question to jump in with. I started interviewing women in rock and metal and punk and goth because even like as a total adult with access to the internet and like these all these stations, like it would never, the algorithm didn't recommend women in these bands to me.
Yeah.
I didn't see them in the media nearly as much. I didn't see them at shows or festivals nearly as much. And this was like 2021, maybe
Mhm.
2022 even. And so I was like, I want to change my reality and I want to live in a reality where like rock stars are women and like that's super solid in my brain chemistry.
Mhm.
And I like decided to start doing portraits of rock goddesses as I call them who I already knew about. So Nina Hagen, Lita Ford, Tina Turner, Jinx
Mhm.
Dawson. And I
Icons.
ended up, yeah, the icons. So I did a bunch of those like names that I knew. I did like 40. And then I would watch their biographies and listen to their interviews and listen to their discographies as I worked on these. So I was like really like learning about these women and I ended up with this like completely nerdy huge amount of knowledge about this stuff where if a man would say to me
Yes.
like I like Led Zeppelin, I'd be like, "You know what? I like the woman that sang in Led Zeppelin." And he's like, "There's no woman that sang in Led Zeppelin." Okay, wait. Wrong. Sandy
Need
Denny
three
sang,
dogs.
yeah, Sandy Denny sang on, the Battle of Evermore.
Mhm.
And, just other stuff like, "Oh, do you know who Nico McBrain played with before Iron Maiden? It was Jenny Darren." And, like, so then
Mm.
I got this, like, kinda bug up my ass, competitive thing about every time a man wanted to talk to me about rock or metal, I was gonna, like, sidetrack the conversation to make it a conversation about women in rock and metal, okay? And so
Yes.
so then I ended up building, so I had all of these paintings of women and my studio like already had like lots of the like normal witchy things that women have, crystals and candles, and then I was like, this space is turning into a temple. So this
Mm.
gallery, I pitched to them an installation and I reinstalled all of this work and the sculptures that I made relative to this and these interactive elements such as what I called the scroll of divine creators, which was a huge pink roll of paper with a pink feather pen, and you could write on the scroll the names of any women in rock and metal. And so it went all the way across the room. The audience kept adding and
Wow.
learning, teaching together. So it was very like community oriented. And then I had a timeline that you could add things to about like when different women released albums or were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or on the cover of Rolling Stones, those kinds of things. And I did a ceremony, and I acted as the priestess of the temple of the rock goddess, and I read these poems that I wrote about all these different women's lives and the things that they overcame and how they stayed in the game and all this. And I read it, and in between each poem, I'd say to the audience in like a Gregorian chant, rock and roll is made by girls. And the audience would say it back. And then after like 10 rounds of this, the audience was screaming, rock and roll is made by girls. And so it was
Wow.
a spiritual experience in that temple. So it was super cool. And I realized I could do a lot with community. But we live in this digital era, and I'm sorry about my soliloquy right now, but you can reach people online like very far,
Yes.
reach far. And so I was like trying to think of a way to create a time capsule of women doing this now.
Mhm,
And I wanted to focus on women who were not super famous already, because I felt that if you always focus on the same 30 super famous female rock musicians, you
mhm,
actually narrow the scope, and you are kind of telling women and people and audiences that this is the whole scope. You have to go into more cutting edge music. So I wanted to focus on artists who had less than 10,000 followers. And some of them, I guess, have a lot more than that. But I was trying to like avoid Leather Leone, Doro Pesh, Lita Ford,
mhm.
just like the same people that are already icons, and don't increase my perception of women who exist in rock and metal. That was better.
No, I understand the assignment. We are trying. We love independent content. We love indie content. We do need to be supporting others that way. That's the best way we can use social media, and it's free to do practically. Like, I don't know why more of us aren't doing it. But oh my god, I have so many follow-ups to that. Like, at any time, I've always felt this way. Like, Christina Scabbia of Lacuna Coil is one of those dream interviews that's just on my
Mhm,
list. I'm sure you have your own people
mhm.
on your list as well. She would be one of them. And I've always thought that, like, if I ever interview her and if I go, what's it like to be a girl in a band? I would
Oh,
be embarrassed.
don't
So,
do it.
like, I know. I'm like, so anytime I see anybody do that, I'm like, oh, like, I'm embarrassed for you. I feel
Yeah.
terrible for you as a, an interviewer, because you do all the things. One of the things is your YouTube channel, for anybody that doesn't know. How do you make sure that you're treating women with respect, treating them as equals, we'll say, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
and not furthering that nonsense that we have?
Yeah, I really contemplated that when I was starting and thinking about what questions I was asking. I had two ideas for the questions. One was that I wanted to ask questions that led to answers that were more like stories. Um,
Mm.
I didn't want to hear about the nitty-gritty of the production of an album, because there's no artist whose interview I watched during that period of time when I was watching all the icons interviews. That's kind of like when I learned everything I need, or not needed, but everything that I understood
Yeah.
about interviewing. I kind of understood some questions are not going to generate interesting answers. And I wanted stories. I wanted soul. I wanted guidance. I also always think about, like, there's a 15-year-old girl who's going to hear this channel. What do we need to tell her? And so I want
Hmm.
my guests to speak about themselves in positive terms. We generally don't talk about men at all on the show, because it's not a show about men. We only talk about women. We talk about what the women have accomplished. It's all about role modeling. So I try to get role model stories.
Hmm.
The other thing is, yeah, I never ask them stuff like, yeah, what's it like to be a girl in a band? Every single person on this channel is a girl in the band. So
That'd be
I
very
just don't,
redundant and very boring very quickly.
and it's that question is not, that question cannot generate an interesting answer. It's just a badly phrased,
No.
and but girls get it all the time.
Yeah.
Stupid ass question. So, so anyway, but I also realized that we as women in a industry that supports men more than us,
Yeah.
um, we have some things we have to be proactive about for our self-care, for example. And like it's very important to me that I don't ask things that would be triggering on the show.
Yes.
Um and the only question that maybe could be like, no, it's not really gendered. It's just, how do you most like to take care of yourself after a long day of touring, recording, rehearsal,
Hmm.
writing, whatever? And so those answers are usually pretty girly. They're like face masks and tea and stuff. But
Yes, trashy reality TV, all the
we
above.
love,
Like,
yeah, whatever. So, but I think it's like an important question, again, going back to the role modeling for younger women, that caring for yourself is cool and chic and rock goddess vibes.
period. Period. All the
Mhm.
time. I love that you just got so theatrical with building this community too with the
No.
Gregorian chants. What so were you involved in musical theater as a kid or anything like that? Or because I can
Oh,
see you doing it.
I sort of I gave it an attempt. But
Okay.
but uh it wasn't really for me. I got the role of Death in a Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. That was like the
Nice.
only thing I ever performed. I had no lines. I didn't want any lines. I didn't want to speak on the stage. And then I also remember trying out for a musical by singing Jesus Christ Superstars a song where it's the arguing like men, the Jewish men, I forget the
Uh-huh. I think I know
the
what you mean.
yeah, like I think they're like rabbis and they're like, we must crush this completely. And I just like stand on different parts of the stage and like sing it myself. They loved it. They gave me a standing ovation because I am theatrical. But I didn't really do any musical theater.
Oh my god, you got a cooler, more badass part than I did. I got the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz. I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment or what, but okay.
Hopefully it had a good costume at least. I feel like that could have
It
been
did.
fun.
It did have a pretty cool costume, and I got to do some slapstick comedy type things, which I will laugh at any. I don't know. I'm that kind of person that will always laugh at physical humor. Like any type of Jim Carrey movie, Will Ferrell movie, like that's my comfort after a long day sort of thing. So which came first? Was it the interest in music or art? Because you're heavily involved in both.
I get that question on also when I'm being interviewed about my art. It's hard to say because my dad was a professional pipe organist and he
Oh wow.
we'd go to all these different churches and institutions and establishments so he could practice when they were empty. And I had a sketchbook, so I would like listen to him play pipe organ and I'd just sort of like crawl around in all these holy spaces and draw things. And
Mm.
so that kind of like makes perfect sense for like why I ended up building a temple of rock goddesses.
There
Kind
it
of like
is. That's
always
it.
gonna happen. That's the whole story, really. That's all the background anybody needs. Um, but my family was multi-faith. So I went to Catholic school, but I went to Jewish day camp in the summer. I also went to Jodo Shinshu Buddhist temple with my mom on Sunday.
Mm.
And then my sister had like lots of Wiccan books and those
Mm.
melted in. And we've got family members from different parts of the world, lots of immigrants in my family from like Korea, Japan, Mexico, Europe.
My goodness. Okay.
So
Wow.
we had a lot of different like colors and things all around us and belief ideas. And so it just appeared to me that you could structure a reality of any kind if you just immerse yourself in whatever you were trying to have, I guess.
Hmm. It's very
Yeah.
cool that you got an exposure to a variety of different things. Like, was that intentional on their part? Did they want you to experience different religions, or that just kind of came with being a multicultural family?
It's the multi, I guess you'd say multicultural. It was just people were just doing their own thing, and you're just a kid getting dragged from one place to another,
Okay.
and so
Yeah, that's
you're
how I felt
there.
about yeah, that's how I felt about my experience too. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a particularly religious person. In fact, organized religion kind of makes me cringe a little bit a lot of the time. The extremists, we'll put it that way. The extremists that are heavily involved make me cringe a lot. But I was like introduced to non-denomination like Bible church, and
Hmm.
you have to ask Jesus in your heart to save you, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, there gets to be a point where it's like when it's shoved down your throat so much, you almost become anti. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that no one did that to you and no one like tarnished your interest in learning more.
Oh, yeah, I think it was just like I'd be at Catholic school on Friday and we'd be like talking about the body of Christ and the Eucharist, which has a super interesting history, in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, and then then on like, school lets out, it's summer, and then I'm at the Jewish day camp, and then they're like talking about, no, Jesus was a very nice person, but there's no son of God. And and then, and then my mom picks me up and we go to the Buddhist temple and they're like, "Oh, you could be a Christian and a Buddhist." Like, blah blah blah. I don't know. So it was just like
Mhm.
everybody was telling different stories and I guess I didn't like take any of them literally. I thought every religion I was exposed to meant to make people be kind to each other. And like those, anything that's a group leadership has the potential to be hijacked.
Yeah.
um and so yeah, and I lived in Turkey for a while, so I lived in you know Muslim culture. And then in Sweden, where I've also lived, it's Lutheran, but they're really more atheist, and they're like
Mm.
aggressively atheist. And I'm like, oh my god, so so silly to me. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that it's really like unnecessary to hate someone for their religion.
Yeah, that's aggressive. We don't
Yeah,
I don't
I
need
don't need
that.
that. Yeah,
We don't need that. We're just saying that, don't scream at other people if they're not doing what you do. Is all.
yeah, like
Like
let people. It's because it's
period.
extremist to have that idea about any philosophy. Like, if you're
Yeah.
gonna hate people for being Christian, you're gonna hate people for other reasons that are baloney as well. So I just
Mhm.
think it's the hate energy to me that is very, very tacky,
Yeah.
not chic, not rock goddess energy. So,
Mm-mm. No, it's not cute. We're not here for her.
not
Mm-mm.
right.
No. I was super impressed when I was reading about you and reading about how well traveled you are. So I wanted to ask, just in all of your travels all over the world, if you could boil all of that experience into one lesson, what do you think is one thing you'll take from that that just like stays with you?
Anyone can do anything. If
Period.
Yeah, if you I mean, there's certain privileges that'll make it a lot easier. The privilege of time, the privilege of, like, the freedom of movement, but, like, if you are determined to have something like, I when I was in 5th grade, I told my mom I wanted to learn Russian, so she got me tapes from the Philadelphia Library, and I would listen to them at night in my room.
Hmm.
And я понимаю только мига мога по-русски. Я где в Санкт-Петербург, June 2012. So I ended up in college winning a scholarship to go to
I
St.
think you
Peter's.
just said you moved to St. Petersburg. I was a
I
Russian in St. Petersburg. We're
no,
translating that to English. Okay.
I said I speak only a little Russian, but I went to St. Petersburg in June of 2012. I had
Okay.
a I had much better grasp of the language then, but I won a scholarship to study Eastern Baroque architecture there, and I just remember like getting off the train and be like, "Yes!" I was like, fifth grade me, like fulfilled the dream. And so then I was just like, "Oh, okay." Like that was very empowering. I now realize that like if there's like something that I am like hyper focused on, I just problem solve until I can have it. But like I
Hmm.
said, it does take certain privileges um to do that. But people overcome a lot. People are very powerful as individuals. And so I think I'd rather go with that message that yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Beautiful. Did early exposure to travel maybe help, traveling for shows or anything like that? Traveling just for your own music career, did that make that any easier?
Hmm. Uh, I guess not. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, uh.
Because eventually we still miss home, I would think, at some point.
No, I really miss turkey very often.
Yeah.
Um, so, oh, I don't know. I guess I don't feel so, I guess it just feels like everything's pretty like open to be returned to. Um, I guess like I could say I like miss a farm that I lived on that was sold, and so like that I don't have access to. I guess most things just feel accessible. So, yeah.
Mm. So you never really miss anything, and you touring, even for the purposes of music, is just kind of like, "Meh, I was going to do this
Oh,
anyway."
I do not tour for music. I don't enjoy that.
Oh, okay.
I tour for art. I do international art exhibits, and I like that a lot because you like I did the Louvre in Paris last September, and I spent
Wow.
like, I needed it to be a short trip because I had a tight schedule. So I think
Mm,
it was there for like 12 days. And it wasn't my first time in Paris either, so I didn't need to be there like a long, long time. But I didn't have to go, play 6 shows in 12 days. I had like the opening night and the whole weekend. It was during Paris Art Basel. So
mm,
there was like the weekend that was like kind of like work. It's not really that bad. You just stand there
mhm.
and talk to people. But then I had all the other time to like be in Paris and have a nice hotel and shower and like sleep a lot.
Yeah. Okay,
And then
that's what we miss. Yeah, the
yeah,
accommodations.
yeah, and then like on Saturday I leave for Barcelona to do a show at the European Museum of Modern Art, and once again, like I planned a photo shoot with Sonia Anubis from Cobra Spell. I'm gonna like
Wow.
go to museums and the beach and stuff. Okay, so it's not like music touring.
It's but it's sort of touring-ish, but doing it in a
Yeah,
way where you're super comfortable and it's on your terms. Would Jupiter ever tour? Let's talk about Jupiter and everything going on with the band.
sure. Would they ever tour? Probably not. Our drummer, his name is Snowy Shaw. He's also the drummer for King Diamond and Merciful Fate.
Yes, he
He
is.
Yeah, he also was in many other great bands,
Mhm.
and continues to work with a lot of musicians. And he, like, the day that we were meeting to talk about the project, he was like, "Do you want to do a lot of tours?" And I said, I was like a little scared to answer the question because my answer was no, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be like a big turn off, and he was going to be like, "Well, then I don't like I want to," but I was like, "No, not really. Like, I think I would do like maybe like 2 festivals a year, and that's it. Like, it's
Okay.
just going to be sparse performances." And it must come from like the artist side of me where I'm like, I don't want to like oversaturate things. I want it to always feel um like very special. Like nobody's going to be able to attend the Rock Goddess Temple again unless I go and I set up another installation somewhere. And like that feels good to me. And it's like if you want to see a Jupiter performance, like you just have to catch it. It's not going to be like a nonstop touring thing for me.
Mhm.
So some people totally love it. Some people feel they're happiest on tour. Some people are so comfy doing that and it really suits their personality, but I am not that person.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So your drummer, does he what didn't really care to tour much, I guess, either, or maybe his plate was already so
Oh,
full.
yeah. I mean, he has to tour all the time
Yeah.
with Merciful Fate and King Diamond, and like he's very open about how he doesn't um love it anymore. Like just getting stuck at airports and like your guitar going missing and like
Ugh.
well, not
Yeah.
but like you know flights delayed, you missed something. I mean, I've seen this kind of thing a million different ways. Vans break down and you're like in the middle of nowhere, you can't get a anyone to come work on the van until Monday, and it's Friday night and your whole show is canceled, and like,
Yeah.
so, it's super hard, and I'm a little posh. I want a hotel.
That's okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I wish I could say that I've been like to half the places that you've been to. Like the Louvre would be a dream for me. Never been. I
Oh, you
really,
can go. Just
I
buy a
mean,
ticket. That's all, babe.
with what money?
Okay,
With
well,
what
that's
money?
a whole different question.
Yeah. With
Gotta manage
what
that budget.
money? I want to. I mean, I've got the heart for it, maybe someday, but it's on the list. I'd love to.
Actually, there is this, I'm kind of like, one of my goals is to like get more financially savvy. And I was reading about Wells Fargo's big fuck up with this special credit
Oh,
card that you can use to pay your rent. Did you hear about this?
oh yeah.
It's got super good rewards for your points. So I
Mm,
think you have till like 2029 to open an account, and like Wells Fargo pays you to do so. And it's only screwing over Wells Fargo. They just like made a deal that was so good for the consumer and so bad for them. But maybe that is your manifestation to get to the Louvre, because you can get, your flight and a bunch of points and stuff. I don't know.
I know.
There's a
There's
way, girl.
options.
There's always a way. There's always a
There's
way.
options. I just, oof. I don't know if you ever feel this way because I've got a 9 to 5. I've got the regular day job. I mean, this I'm doing because I want to do it and I enjoy doing it. And this is what I'm doing when I'm not working. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you get the same chance to do it, but a lot of the time I end up feeling like I literally don't have much time for much else because I'm
Mm,
stuck doing that one thing
mm,
that's monotonous and I'm neutral about it and it's a
mhm.
paycheck, but it's certainly not the way I wish I would be spending those hours.
You don't have to live that way.
Sometimes I feel like I do. I guess I feel like I do because I get scared about, well, what about my financial security?
Right? So that is something that artists, um, like I'm gonna put you in touch with my friend Kat Popova, because like she leads women that are like, I am an artist, and that is like what needs to be like the majority of what I do with my life. I can't take more than a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just all these different things that we work on as groups all the time that help us earn income. Like I have a small business that's super flexible. I can do it anywhere around the world, and it's creative. So it's just yeah, just turn down anything in life you don't want. Refuse. That's like my like secret to happiness is say no. Channel Tina Turner and just be like,
Nope.
you
Bye,
better be
Ike.
good.
Bye,
Yeah,
Ike. I'm gonna run across this freeway. I'm not staying in that hotel room tonight.
yeah, you better be good to me. I guess that's just like, if you have um and like it doesn't mean like I mean my business, anybody who owns a business knows that you actually do still work for other people. You have like
Of
your
course.
clientele and
Mm-hmm.
everything. You have institutions you pair with in my case. And so I have no problem working for or with other people, but like I know that if I don't have flexibility, it totally crushes my creativity.
Mm,
And so I just have to be a little scrappy about stuff sometimes, but it all comes together. You learn things about like where to put your money and stuff like that, and you can grow like an income from investing the right way. And like that is something that like I learned with actually this group of artists. Like so like some wisdom from Kat. She told me, when I first started my business, I was really scared of the IRS. I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna fuck it up. They're gonna come kill me." She's like,
yeah, it is
and she was,
scary.
wait, right? So that's how I was thinking, and she was like, "You need to reframe your thoughts, and you need to start saying the IRS loves me." So I did my taxes. Like the last couple years, I've been doing my taxes, and they got a little complicated. So I got some advice from a professional tax advisor, and they were like, dude, this lady called me a tax rock star. She was like, you did everything right. Like all of this is so well prepared and perfect. And I was like, oh my God, I healed the tax wound. Like, you know how you can have like a mother wound? You can have a
Yeah.
tax wound.
Yep.
Maybe you have like, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but maybe you have like a work wound. Maybe somebody in your life
Oh,
told
I
you that,
definitely do.
oh yeah, okay, well,
I definitely do. I grew up with two parents in a dying steel industry in the 90s. Like
shit.
I grew up in Pittsburgh. So like
Okay.
and when the industry died and outsourcing was happening, I watched them do whatever it was they had to do and provide. So yeah, it is a little spooky, and I think when you watch that, you learn no one's coming for you. No one's going to help you. So you got to do what you got to do, even if it means you're not completely fulfilled emotionally or mentally.
Let me tell you a deep story that you might connect with then. My great grandmother during the Depression, she had 3 daughters, and her man done RUNNOFT to go marry some,
No.
yeah, to go marry a rich lady during the Depression, and he abandoned them. And my mom used to tell me that my great grandmother had to start doing laundry to keep her family fed and housed. And then I learned with my coach, Kat, that I realized, no, she started a business that was so successful, it kept her family alive and fed and together and housed, and that she was resourceful, not desperate.
A laundry business? Is that what it
Well,
was?
hey man, if you are a self-owned, money-making operation, I'd call you a business. So
Okay.
that, yeah,
So
I
she
mean
she
that
would wash other people's clothes.
she was a laundress. Yeah, she'd bring
Yeah.
them to her house, I guess, and I don't think she had, like, a brick and mortar shop or anything. I think that, it was probably a lot more hand washing before washing machines were, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like, all over the place. But anyway, so it was just like a reframe, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "Wow, she supported 3 kids and herself by, like, being a professional laundress." And I thought, "Oh, shit,
Whatever
like, that."
works.
Yeah, I thought, like, if you can do that, you can do a lot of other things that make money too. And
Mm-hmm.
you can be smart and careful about what you save and where you save it. And, you know, I'm also like my lifestyle, I don't know, everything is kind of, somebody once told me, a little over engineered, but it works very well.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
it kind of is. Like when you think about my art, it's pretty like big picturey. So, yeah, all the details just, um, I think are super interesting. I love building a machine of any sort. Robotics are fun too.
You're building your own brand in a sense with
Yeah, I guess
everything
you're right.
you do. I think when you were talking about your own business, is that the art or the tutoring? Because I read you do a little tutoring too.
Yeah, my business is called Tutor of the Arts, and I write educational programming for different institutions. Like I've taught at the Philadelphia Library, I've taught at Moore College of Art and Design, UCal, art galleries like Hudson Gallery. I
Hmm.
have done curatorial work for places like Crown of Creation and Giovanetti Studios. So it's like it falls under arts education umbrella,
Okay.
but it's multimodal, and it's like easy to take to lots of different spaces. Basically, it's like if I find an institution and I really like working with the staff, it doesn't take very long for me to build up a student body in these places, and then I basically tell the institutions like that, like, here's the labor that I'll do, here's what I expect from you, because that's kind of like the thing with everything in life. You kind of really have to communicate your expectations with people right off the bat,
Yeah.
and then I mean, people usually do what you ask them to do, I think.
I'm slowly learning this because that was talking about getting out of your own head and getting, out of your own way. I am slowly learning that building relationships, I mean, sure, we do it when we're outside of work, we'll say, for lack of a better term, but when you do it at work, something about that always felt a little bit slimy to me because
Hmm.
there was obviously an intention behind why you're
Mm,
seeking that person out and why
mhm,
you're hoping to collaborate with that person. Bah, 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 bah.
mhm.
You're automatically hoping to get something from it. And somebody
Yeah,
had to sit down and tell me, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Even in business, those types of relationships can be mutually beneficial too. It doesn't
absolutely.
have to be as slimy as you think it is.
It's
I
not.
was, and that to me really got me a little bit more comfortable with introducing myself to just more people and seeing kind of
Mhm.
where things go to get to where I want to get to in life. But it took a minute because I was so afraid. I really thought it was like, morally like detestable. I was like, this is horrible. It's slimy. I would never introduce myself or fake a friendship just because I want to get something that they have or that they have access to or whatever. Ugh.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, but a skill trade is really what it comes down to, like,
Yeah.
and cooperation. And there's nothing slimy about cooperation. Like if I can bring the spot point the spotlight on somebody who's doing interesting creative work and have them tell their
Period.
stories that are going to help other people when they hear those stories, there's
Yes.
nothing slimy about approaching them and saying, I'd like you to be on my show. How does it mutually benefit me? It's brand building, right?
Hmm.
And um it helps both people, and it is genuine and it is fun, and I do love like having I feel very honored to have the opportunity to ask people these questions. Or if I'm like curating an art show and I'm collecting artists, I like to like find stories that fit together and have similar
Yeah.
aesthetics, and that's a beneficial for everybody that gets included and involved. I think that society, like if I had a magic wand and I could have two things for society, at least in the United States, since it's where I'm most familiar with, I wish that we had more value in unity and community and the
Period.
power of that. And I
Yeah.
also wish that we had more value in mercy,
Mm.
because I feel
Eh,
that something has happened and we live in this extremely unmerciful uh air where,
yeah.
and like I repel that, and I try to like I don't know, I don't play with that stuff that because
Yeah, it just becomes cutthroat. And I sit there and I watch other people do this. Like, God, especially in radio, it got weird and cutthroat and we're bad mouthing other people, blah, 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 blah. And I would sit back and I go, what is the purpose of this? Like, what exactly are you gaining from putting your energy in that direction? You're not even gaining an extra dollar. Like,
it
what is
goes back
doing that?
yeah, it goes back to that like not cute, icky, like hate energy, where it's like, yo, you everybody needs to learn to forgive each other, because if you can't forgive other people, you can't forgive yourself, and you're going to live in pain.
Mm,
And
mm-mm.
and it's tough to love yourself if you can never forgive your own mistakes, and it's tough to
Yeah.
love anybody else if you can't forgive theirs. So that is not sustainable or healthy, and I'm not
No,
into it. Yeah.
no, but it made me think like just the capitalist ideals. I'm like, is this what it is? Is this the source of why that behavior is permissible or why we see it? I'm like, because they think that they're going to gain some sort of thing just by tearing somebody down however they
uh
can, even if it's with words. And I sit back and I'm like, I can't, this is me trying to put logic behind it. I don't know.
mhm.
I ain't a
Yeah.
psychologist either. But I was like, if I were to put logic behind it, I have to wonder if the system that we have encourages that behavior.
It reminds me of this strange experience I had where I got a string endorsement, which I super love. Aurora
Yeah.
strings. They make my hot pink bass strings. You know I'm about that.
Yes.
And someone else who was also endorsed by the company was like pissed off that I got endorsed. And I was like, it doesn't take
See?
anything away from you for other people to have good things. Like
No.
other people can have good things too. You know?
Why don't
It's
we understand that? Yeah.
I think it's
What?
because we're well, I don't know who people turn to for moral guidance anymore.
I don't know
Um,
either.
because like um I think people feel that self-determination for morality, that's the mode at this time. And so we get a lot of like mixed morals. I think that, to be upset that somebody else has something good might be a total lack of morals. I think
Mm-hmm.
the opposite is to celebrate those people like you do, Val.
I try.
Yeah.
I
She's
try my hardest.
out here role modeling how to appreciate good things for other people.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. But no, I do. I just because I think part of that is because I saw so many people get stepped on, and I just thought that it wasn't called for at all. And I
Yeah,
was like,
it's not.
that's not what I want to see. That's not the world I want to live in. I
There
don't
you
want to
go,
be part of
manifesting
any
your
of that.
morality, my queen. My queen out here
Mm-mm.
making it real.
We're
Yeah,
trying.
that's so cool.
Well, just of all the projects you're doing or just life in general, what's next for you? What can we look forward to coming from you?
Okay, so as far as art goes, I have the show in Barcelona. The 28th, 29th, and 30th is when that is open. It's a weekend show. And also I want to say that the museum is having a very interesting event from the 25th, 26th, 27th. That is like all of this cool like summer solstice, sort
Oh,
of
okay.
Spanish witchy stuff, lots of tarot and everything. I am
Hmm.
going to be at the museum all week because I'm interested in that exhibit too. And then in September, I will be exhibiting at Chelsea Old Town Hall in London for the Women's Art Biennial. And I'm going to hang out with a bunch of the British rock goddesses from the show. So, um, super excited for that. And
Yeah.
then, um, so that's what's going on there. We have a new Jupiter single coming out towards the end of summer. Can't share the date just yet, but that's there in the canon. And then hopefully I get a little more time to work on my short stories. I have a Substack of like my spooky sci-fi horror stuff, and I'm like
Ooh,
definitely
fun.
like a baby writer. But like Coach Cat says, just like put yourself out there, see what happens. What else am I doing? So I'm going to be in a show here in Philadelphia that's all like mermaids and oceanic theme. And then I'm going to move from Philadelphia in October, so that will be the end of the Philadelphia chapter. And I got a permanent residency in Sweden, so
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, Olaf Wickstrand. Let me tell you, that was not a complicated process. It was a lot of waiting, but it was fine. I encourage anybody who wants to um, emigrate, give it a shot. Just
Yeah.
paperwork. It's just paperwork. So anyway, Olaf Wickstrand, guy from Enforcer. Most people know
Mm-hmm.
his name.
Mm-hmm.
He um he mixed our first two singles, and then he's like asked like if he could produce the album, and I was like, hell yeah, Olaf. So I think that's what I'll be working on in Sweden when I get over there. That's what I'm thinking of doing first. Um, yeah, so I think that's kind of what I got going on.
We're ready for it all. I can't wait. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your nuggets of wisdom. I'm going to leave this thinking about things. I just want to tell you, I'm going to leave this thinking about things. So I appreciate
You're gonna
you.
need
Thank
to
you.
grab your journal. I want you to journal tonight. I'm tasking you.
No, I like to journal. Journaling
Perfect.
is so helpful for my mental health, really, particularly with anxiety. I'm like, when I'm pissed off about something or whatever, I just write it down and okay, set it
Yeah,
out. I don't
you
hold it
gotta
in anymore.
tell me if you get any like powerful insight or have any revelations. I want to know.
Or yeah, or weird dreams. I've had that happen. I've had that happen. Okay. So the whole thing that kicked, I'll tell you a story. The whole thing that kicked my ass into really like networking and making a career in radio happened right when I was about to graduate college because I went for broadcast and I got a career in broadcast. I was reading up on Norwegian runes or Norse runes, I guess I should say, like Norse mythology and the runes, just because I wanted to, because I love all that shit from Norway, Sweden, Amon Amarth, all that.
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand where these songs that I was getting into were coming from. That what's their culture? So I read up on them, and there was this one particular rune called the Wild Ox rune. And as I was reading about it, I don't know. It was the last one that I read about before I fell asleep. And supposedly it's the one that encourages confidence and strength and is super powerful. It's apparently super manly as well, too. Represents a bull, from what I understand.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know why, but I was like, I'm ready to take this on. But seriously, I went to bed, read that, went to sleep, and woke up, and I was like, I don't know why, but I woke up with the clearest head and the clearest idea of what I wanted to do to make that career in radio happen. I just
Ooh.
I was like, I know what I need to do. All I need to do is get a package of, my material together. And then I'm going to talk with other radio people local to me and find out how they
Mhm.
did it. Like,
Mhm.
just mapped out a little bit of a strategy to
Mhm.
make that happen. And I swear to God, it was that one little section in that book that I literally slept on. It was
That's so
odd.
cool. That is so interesting.
Like, I've
W
never had that happen to me since, but something about that just was, I don't know. It made an impact.
Yeah, it sounds impactful. It sounds magical. I love magic.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, yeah. Um,
I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here. I'm done rambling now.
I loved the story. Thank you for having me, Val. It was such a pleasure, and I'm so honored that I could be a part of this.
Of course.